About what? What we started talking about a couple of weeks ago? Work with me here. Look on your bulletin somewhere at the top. No hints available today. Okay.
Standing
All right.
on the promise of God. Are you still on that?
No. Yeah, when you were gone, at least you remember that one. Okay. We've been talking about our mission. And very good. Without Bill, even. He managed to get up here and really knows what he's doing. Good. All right. And I did say this week we were going to talk about what? Largely Bill, because he's not here. All right. But we won't. Okay. Oh! Here, let's see. Yeah, it's going to get interesting today. Yeah, there you go. That'll work. And you can play that when you want. There you go. Okay. All right, we've been talking about our mission. And we did start a couple of weeks ago, and we started with the Great Commission. And we said what was happening around the time of the Great Commission? Jesus was getting ready to do what? Ascend. Ascend into heaven. Okay. So he was leaving, so those were his parting comments. So how important are they? Very important. Work with me. Very important. All right, last week we talked about Jesus was actually addressing his disciples at what? The Last Supper. Last Supper, okay. And his words there were very important. Okay, because, I mean, think about the time he's addressing. He's telling them something that's very important. And at the Last Supper he was telling them what was their mission to do. To
make disciples.
That was before that. 2 weeks, Great Commission, before he went out and make disciples. Last week at the Last Supper, he was saying to love one another as I have loved you. The new commandment.
Right.
And the new part was, as I have loved you. So today we're going to continue. We're going to look at 1 Peter. What do we know about Peter?
He was a fisherman.
He was a fisherman. Was he a great theologian?
Nope.
No. Paul is the theologian.
Right.
Paul is the one that can go through all the Old Testament and just lay out great theology as to why Jesus is God. Peter is not. Peter is a fisherman. Whatever Peter says is short and to the point. Whatever Peter is saying is very important because he's not mincing any words. So we're going to look at what he says in chapter 1, beginning in verse 13 and going to verse 19. Verse 13. Therefore, gird up the loins of your mind. Okay, therefore, because you know who Jesus is, because you have accepted him as Lord and Savior, because you know he is God, therefore do what? Gird. What's that?
Be mindful.
Be mindful. Gird up your loins. What's that mean?
Listen up.
All right, what's the whole gird up your loins thing? See, I was going to wear my real long, dress thing, in the first century, you see pictures of the fellas there, and they had kind of a skirt thing on, right? Okay. And to gird up your loins meant what?
Prepare your mind for action.
Prepare your mind for action. See, we're technical. We understand all that. I mean, the whole first thing is, let's see. Let's see. We'll use an illustration. Okay, Jenny.
Yeah.
Stand up. And step out into the aisle, please. Okay. Now, see what Jenny's wearing? Peter would have worn something similar. Right? Now, if you were actually going to do something... Okay, I'm just getting the point across. You can sit down now. Very good. Okay. All right. If you were actually going to go do some work, what would you sort of have to do? You got to pull that thing up, right? And cinch it up out of the way so you can actually move. So you pull that up and you kind of loop it into your belt there. Because now you're actually able to do something to gird up your loins. See, you've pulled everything up tight around the loin area. And now you can move. Because anybody that's ever walked with a dress, Brad, tell them about it. It's always something when the bride walks up here. And Jenny actually walked up here. It's just like this is death defying.
It's a tall step.
Yeah.
When you're in a dress.
And it's about that big when you come down. Yeah. So it's like you almost want to just go, oh, the heck with it. Because in the long dress, this is not easy to do. You can't just go up and down steps. You can't just go out and you can't do stuff. So you have to gird up your loins. You got to pick the thing up, tie it up so it's not going to fall back down. Why would you do that? He says, gird up the loins of your mind. Why would you do that? Why do you tie that all up? Because you've got
To be mindful and sober.
to be mindful and sober. That's your mind part, and the sober part, good. But the reason you got to tie this up is because he's preparing you for something. There's going to have to be some work done. He's not saying this is a fashion statement. We'll get to those in a minute. He's not saying that as a fashion statement because, long flowing dresses look better when they're girded up. He's not saying that. He's saying prepare for something. Prepare for some work to be done, or even possibly to defend yourself. So he's telling us for a reason. This is Peter the fisherman. Gird up the loins of your mind. What's he saying now? He's applying that gird up mentality to your mind. Prepare your mind. For what? What did we just say? Work or defense. Prepare your mind. Get all the cobwebs off to the side. Any extra baggage, move the baggage out of the way. And if most of us, in my case, if I move the baggage out of my mind, what am I left with? Not much. There's a whole lot of empty room in there. I'm ready to work now because there's nothing going on in there. Peter says to prepare your mind. Clear your mind. Get all that stuff out of the way. Why is that important?
We have to be ready to receive.
If your mind is full of stuff, how much work can you do? I mean, even in the first century, they had people in the first century walking around like this too. Maybe not. But there was also stuff going on that would clog up your mind. There's plenty of stuff going on now that would cloud up your mind. I mean, we have got so many time-saving devices that we've got zero time. I mean, the cell phone is a wonderful thing. It saves many lives. But what else does it do? Sucks your brain out. I mean, it's like the vacuum sweeper of the mind. I mean, as soon as you have one, it's boom. I mean, no matter people at great sporting events, what are they doing? I'm at the zoo with these cool animals. Except for the other people that do this. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the world. Peter's saying, hey, even in the first century, there was a lot of stuff that goes on in the world. We need to kind of clear up some of that stuff, move it off to the side, because there's something that's going to have to be done. Be sober. What's that mean? Now, is he just saying, hey, don't be drunk? That's not the point. Be sober. What's he saying with that?
Be focused.
Be focused. Be clear-minded. I mean, he's not simply saying, don't be drunk. I mean, there's a lot of things that can cloud up our mind. There's a lot of things that can take our focus. And there were in the first century too. So he's saying, do that. Be sober. Romans chapter 12, verse 1 says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. What's Paul saying? There's going to have to be some work done. Present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy. Paul says there's work that has to be done. What's Peter saying? There's work that has to be done. It's not simply if you just believe in Jesus. That's not it. It never was. We're supposed to, we talked today in the Bible study, what has God always wanted from man? For us to believe Him. Believe Him. Not just believe in Him. I mean, even the demons believe in God, that He exists. The demons are pretty far above our scientists here that think we just something blew up and this happened. The demons are way brighter than they are. But that's not what it takes to be saved. We have to believe God. Believe what He says. In order to do that, that's going to require us to work. The work is not what saves you. It's believing God. But if you believe God, you're going to have to do some things. Paul is telling us that. Present your body a living sacrifice. You're going to have to demonstrate that physically in the world. What's Peter saying? The same thing. There's going to have to be work involved. The problem is we're in the 21st century. And in the 21st century in this country, we're an entitlement society. Everything is supposed to be coming to us, right? You know, I'm an American, so, or even we've gotten to the point where if you've just managed to cross over the border, we don't even care how. You've got stuff coming to you.
Amazing.
The entitlement society, I do believe that our national culture reflects the church. The church has become an entitlement society. We think God owes us something. We think because we're so saved by grace, God expects zero of us. But is that true? I mean, that's not what Peter said. That's not what Paul said. Both of them are saying God expects something of you. Why would he say, gird up your loins, prepare to do something, if God expected nothing of you? Yeah, probably the better thing, if God expected nothing of you, Peter and Paul would have said, go out and invest in a hammock. Because just straighten that dude up. Let God do stuff. That was never the intention. And we see this all around us. Now, I did see this. I thought this was awesome. All right. Georgia to implement work requirements for food stamp recipients. Originally a pilot program in 3 counties, the program requires that all able-bodied adults without children either get a job or lose access to food stamps. All able-bodied adults without children. I didn't think they could get food stamps in the first place. If you're able-bodied without children, the implication would be that you should work. So Georgia is implementing this. Now, since the pilot program started in January, the number of food stamp recipients decreased by 60%.
Wow.
What's that tell us?
People that didn't deserve it are getting food stamps.
If I got to get a job, I don't want it.
Yeah. That's so true.
Okay, amazing. But that's our culture has become, somebody owes me something. That there's nothing expected of us. I mean, I'm glad to see that somewhere in the country where they're handing out money, that they're kind of putting some kind of, we expect something of you. God expects something of us. We're not just so saved by grace that just lay back and hang out and it's all going to be good. So gird up your loins, the loins of your mind, be sober, and rest your hope fully upon the grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So he's not throwing grace out the window. He's saying an aspect of grace is preparing to do something. How are we to do it? Verse 14. As obedient children. How does God expect us to demonstrate our relationship with him? Isn't there a picture of children?
Oh, Baruch, that's Baruch.
What's her name?
Baruch.
Okay.
Charlie in the Chocolate Factory.
I knew where she came from. I didn't know her name.
Yeah.
Veruca.
And the
Silly me when I read it. I thought her name was Veronica, but that's what happens when you read fast. And what is she?
Brat. He's a brat.
Because she expects what?
Everything.
Everything.
Candy and
You know, we've almost...
I want it
What
now.
Yeah, and I want it now. I want everything and I want it now. And if you can't, my dad will get it for me. She is the embodiment of the entitlement society. We almost have a picture of kids as that way. That's not the picture he wants us to be. How did he tell us that he wanted it to be done? As obedient children, meaning attentive and submitting. That's what God asks of us. Be attentive and submitting. Don't be the I want it now guy. I mean, part of what is actually preached now, for instance, Joel Osteen, is I want it now. God, what are you going to, God's going to do this for me. And he better do it for me. I mean, he doesn't get real aggressive about it, but God just wants to bless you. God just wants to do this stuff. Does God want to bless you? Sure. Does God expect something of you? Yes. To be involved, to make disciples, to love one another. To be holy. This is what Peter's telling us today, that God expects us to be holy. What does it mean, holy? What's holy mean?
Different.
Separate.
Different, set apart. Yeah, I like set apart better than different, because we know a lot of people who are different. Set apart's better. So to be set apart for God. Not just, well, he's set apart, all right. To be set apart for God. That's what Peter's telling us we need to be. That's what Paul is telling us we need to be. That's what God says we need to be. And how do we do that? By being attentive and submitting. When you're attentive, what are you doing? Paying attention. Exactly. And when you're submitting, what are you doing?
Paying attention.
Yeah, you're saying, okay, I hear what you're saying, and I will do that. All right, we'll go back to what we talked about in the Bible study. God expects us to do what? Believe Him. So whatever He says, He expects us to believe it. If He says, do this, we do it. If He says, don't do that, we
Don't do it.
don't do that. That's what He's telling us to do. That's what He's calling us to do. And will it take effort?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Romans 12:1. Lord knows how to deliver. The Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of temptation and to reserve the unjust under the punishment for the day of judgment. What's He saying? If we believe Him, what will He do?
He delivers out of temptation.
Yeah. If we believe Him, and we're willing to listen and be obedient, He will work us through it. He'll deliver us out of the temptation. And reserve the unjust under the punishment for the day of judgment. What's He say about the unjust? About those who say, no, I don't need to do anything, I'm good. What's going to happen?
Come the day of judgment, you will be sorry.
And the key to that is, there is a God who will
Punish.
judge. As obedient children, not conforming. The word conform means to be fashioned alike. Now, when you think of fashion, what do you think? Brad.
Ooh, I'm not good with fashion.
What do you think about fashion? When fashion, what do you think? What comes to mind? Clothes, of course. It came to my mind too, so I'm thinking, good. To be fashioned alike actually means to be molded and made. Don't be molded and made like everybody else. Do not be conformed. Don't be fashioned alike. Don't be molded and made. But when you think about it, you think about clothes. So the first thing that came to my mind is, don't be conformed. Don't be fashioned like everybody else. Don't be, almost in the same sense, don't be dressed and made up like everybody else. Why? Remember that? Now that was cool. That was from the 70s. Look at that. Look at those big collars and tight pants and wow. And the white belt. Mike, that was you, wasn't it, baby? You didn't do this thing, did you? Yeah? I could just get a mental picture of Mike doing the... Why shouldn't we be fashioned alike? Even if we take for a moment and we use that as in the clothing sense. Why? Because anybody that was dressed like that looks back now and says,
What was I thinking?
exactly. Why aren't we supposed to be conformed like everybody else? Why aren't we supposed to be fashioned like everybody else? Because there's a point in time when you know the Lord, you know reality, there's a point when you look back and you say, what the heck was I thinking? Or, better yet, look at that outfit.
Wow.
That's Bridesmaids. Tell me you don't want to be a part of that group. Man, are those the ugliest dresses